Turn one soul ring.
I think I got it.
I think we got it too.
I think
All
I
right,
can.
Good. Then let's get started, everybody.
It's good to have balanced levels.
That's right. This is the show. It's Turn One Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
I'm Riley.
And we have our editor joining us once again, Ainsley.
Hello, I'm Ainsley.
Hi, Ainsley.
Hey, Riley.
It's nice to have you back.
Hello there.
Hello. Hello. It's so nice to say hello to you.
Yes, that's right.
And you say hello back.
Ainsley and I are in the same room, and you guys are remote as usual. So it is nice to have somebody.
The whole crew together.
It is nice to have the whole crew together, but it's also nice to be recording with another individual. Sort of takes me back to the old days, the pre-pandemic days before we did this. But
when our episode started with 0.
yes, yes. But it is also I think one of the gifts of COVID is that we got used to doing it remotely because there are definitely a lot of positives to it.
Yeah.
But anyways, we are continuing our Rath Storm series today with part 2. Last week we covered Gerard and his stepbrother Vool's early years. We also explained Vool's evil rise to power.
I think you mean Gerard and Vool.
Gerard, yes. Is that...
That was one of our nicknames that Riley came up with.
Well, actually, a lot
Gerard.
of... sometimes Google Docs will spell correct me when I write Gerard to... It'll do G-E-T-A-R or G-E-T-R-A-R-D, so it's Getrard, which is a weird one. I thought Gerard was more of a common name. I've actually heard it out there in the world, but... Anyways, we left off with Vool disappearing into a portal that his mentor Stark had supplied for him, and that's where we'll start things off today. Vool was, of course, transported to the harsh plane of Rath, and I'm kind of hazy on this next part, but it sounds like what happened was once Vool arrived on Rath, he was transported to Phyrexia, where he either met Yawgmoth or telepathically communicated with Yawgmoth. We've mentioned in previous episodes how, or why Yawgmoth has been able to live these many thousands of years is because, number one, he turned himself into a completed Phyrexian, but also because he would go into long periods of hibernation or sort of like suspended animation. But while in that state, he could telepathically communicate with his inner circle members or people like Vool. And I don't know how close he needed to be to them or how close, rather, they needed to be to wherever he was hibernating. But I do think they at least needed to be on Phyrexia. But anyways, they communicated that way.
And that's why they call him Yawgmoth Daddy.
That's right. He's the king. He's the king of kings. Love him or hate him, he's achieved a lot. And I think we need to recognize that.
Here is your achievement award and your participation trophy.
So Yawgmoth promised Vool power beyond his imagining, and Vool agreed. He had a lot of potential, if we remember from the last episode. He was then completed. He was stripped of his flesh and bone and, well, everything else, organs, all that good stuff. And remade into the infamous Phyrexian shapeshifter known as Volrath.
Oh, hey.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yawgmoth also equipped him with the telepathic ability to manipulate Flowstone, which was the semi-intelligent material Rath was made of.
Was that the twist?
Yes, in case you didn't know where Volrath came from, and before I read this book, I didn't. Volrath is a relatively prominent character from this time period. He has this artwork is from Volrath the Fallen, and he recently got another card in I think it was Commander 2019. He was a Sultai commander, and he's a very prominent character in this whole saga in the struggle with Gerard and Weatherlight's crew. But I didn't know that they had this whole backstory where they're actually stepbrothers. So it makes this struggle between the two much more emotional. It's almost like an Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker relationship, if you will. Not the same, mind you. Of course, I know that, but it has that emotion behind it. That they're brothers, literally.
Yeah.
Oceans taking
That's pretty
me
cool.
over.
Yeah, the Commander 2019 was Volrath the Shape Stealer.
Shape Stealer, yes.
Man,
Steals your shapes.
he was a cool legendary creature. I feel like I should build a deck around him.
Well, that was in your deck, so you don't have to buy that. I presume, which would be a very curled foil at this point.
It should be pretty flat. I managed to
Okay.
keep most of my foils pretty flat. So
Yeah, it's not like it's in Trevor's collection. Am I right?
Sick burn on.
I think he actually curls them though. I think he has like a nice like a
Purposefully?
curling iron, and I
Yeah,
think he takes
yeah.
his foils out and curls them.
yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah.
he like spritzes them with water and then just leaves them and lets them.
Well, he does say he built a sauna on his house, and he probably takes his foils into his sauna after he opens them from a pack or a commander set, and he's like, "You wait in here."
That's where he opens his packs.
It must be
In the
no
sauna.
doubt. I
Yeah.
have no doubt. He keeps his foil binder in there, which is actually just a pile of foils.
Trevor, if you're listening, we love you.
Of course, we love you. We joke because we care.
Exactly.
He'd be the first one to admit that he takes his foils into his sauna, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like,
So-
oh, you're not supposed to do that?
So what was once the young Jamuran man became a hideous figure. Fleshy, horn-like flaps framed his pale face, and plates of strange-looking metal encased his gray body like a suit of armor.
I mean, like, somebody will still find it pretty, but most will find it hideous.
Yeah. Well, I chose the word hideous. Actually, in the book, they use the adjective weird.
Oh.
It's a weird figure, which I guess is a little more inclusive.
He's
saying
got a-
somebody's weird rather
It
than
is,
hideous.
because it might just mean that he's not everybody's cup of tea. He's not mainstream.
Oh, he's still
Yeah.
stacked
It's just
though,
kinda
like a
weird.
truck, and he can turn into like any form.
So you could probably make dildo hands and like have sex with 5 people at once.
I was thinking more like just turn into like a good-looking man or woman, but yeah,
With
whatever,
dildo hands.
whatever. With dildo hands. Yeah, I guess because the picture, he's doing the hand
Yeah.
thing.
Fingers,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
dick
my
fingers.
God.
You got it, Ralph. You were on the same page.
He's got a face
So-
only a mother could love.
Oh.
And with hands, any woman can love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or man.
Or man.
You know?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Or man, yeah.
We're inclusive here.
So Volrath was then transported back to Rath, where he challenged the sitting Evankar in combat and won, becoming the new Evankar of Rath, and that's how Volrath rose to power. So
Hell yeah.
we're not quite finished with this part of the story, because one night, about a month after Stark sent the then Vul to Rath, he found himself at an inn. And while in his room, a knock came at the door, and it was a package addressed to him carried by a small boy. And the boy left the package and scurried away, and Stark closed the door, opened the package, and was suddenly swallowed up into a portal and transported back to Rath.
Ooh, that's like a glitter bomb.
Yeah.
It's like a gift you don't want.
Well, yes, and it was Volrath that transported him back, and it was much the same way that Stark sort of unceremoniously transported Vul, the then Vul, to Rath. So it's sort of
A little tit for tat.
yes. So once Stark arrived on Rath, he was confronted by Volrath, who told him everything we just told you about his rise to power. And there's another inconsistency here, because when Volrath is explaining his tale of completion to Stark, he says that he'd suffered eternities.
Ooh,
Oh
weird.
yeah, it's weird.
Is it just like like an exaggeration, or maybe,
It's probably
I don't know. Yeah,
Caught in like a
Yeah.
time rift.
maybe?
could be. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it was an easy thing to win an entire world? I suffered eternities. I abandoned my flesh as well as my soul. To wrest the throne, I had to challenge my predecessor. I prevailed, though at great cost.
Yeah, so only a month had passed for Stark, but Volrath is saying he suffered eternities. So yeah, maybe time moves differently, or we do have 9 spheres of Phyrexia, so maybe which sort of act as mini planes. Actually, no, I was thinking about this recently. Not dissimilar to how the realms of Kaldheim are explained with the 12 realms that are sort of mini planes revolving around the world tree. The Phyrexia is the 9 spheres that are nested in one another like a Russian doll. So, but each one is almost like a different plane, and you can't just travel from one to another without a portal or the ability to planeswalk. So, anyways, my point being that maybe time moves differently on some of those planes, or maybe it just felt like an eternity. Like an international flight.
At least you have drinks on an international flight, though.
Yeah,
Hey, yo.
you're not having your flesh ripped apart. By the time Stark was dragged back to Rath, drug? Is it? What was the
It's
word?
dragged.
It's dragged.
Drug is like drugs, which are good, which are bad. You wouldn't say drugged.
You're right.
I mean,
You're
it could
right.
explain the whole like eternities thing. Like if he was drugged and
Yeah.
brought back.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just tripping balls.
Yeah.
Now that can feel like an eternity. So yeah, you may have
Exactly.
something there.
Cycles.
That's a bad trip.
So Volrath had found out that Stark was sent to sabotage Voul's rite of passage so that his failure would begin to shape him into what he had become. And Volrath was understandably upset about this, as well as Stark sending him to Rath all by himself. That probably also was a bit of a shock to the system. But Volrath didn't kill Stark. He thought torturing him would be a better course of action, and that's just more of his style to torture. So he made Stark his personal servant / whipping boy.
And I like here that you've noted he's more of the torture-y type.
He is. And we'll see more of that as we get into this series. But you know what? Volrath torturing these characters, he's really just torturing himself. You know?
Aw.
Yeah, he is. That's what I think, because he's just Volrath just hates himself.
I think that's common with people who torture people.
They're just trying to find something.
They just hate themselves.
They just hate themselves.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they're trying to find something like, show me where the treasure is. Then they torture someone.
Well, I was
that's-
thinking, like they're trying to find something within themselves.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was like, tell me where the trigger is. Then it's Batman wailing on Bane.
Yeah.
Where are the other drugs going?
Nice.
So, Volrath had also found Stark's daughter while he was on Rath, and taken her prisoner at the stronghold. So we can have a little bit more sympathy for Stark at this point. But I think this might have been a step too far for Volrath, because Stark probably would have been content to serve his new master so long as his daughter remained safe with the relatives that she had been sent to live with. But now Stark had a reason to fight back or defy Volrath. And because Volrath had taken his daughter prisoner, and her, I think most people's children, their safety becomes your first priority, right? It's sort of like, I was going to say that thing about the safest place to sit in the safest place to sit in a car, they say, is behind the driver, because in the event of a crash, the driver will protect their side of the car. They'll protect themselves. But once you throw the driver's child into the mix, it sort of throws that theory in the air. What I mean is that now Stark is desperate, and it's not good to have somebody who's desperate working for you, or even around you. So I think this is something that Volrath will come to regret, just not killing Stark.
Yeah, that's why in the hit series Lost, everybody hated Michael because he was always like, Walt, I gotta save my boy. And it was annoying, but like, you become obsessed with your kid.
Is that the guy from The Matrix? Matrix Reloaded?
I haven't seen The Matrix
Okay, we're
Reloaded.
gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to do a 3-part series on The Matrix Reloaded. Okay, we're gonna maybe that's that's some good Patreon content we can do.
Excellent.
That's basically how things went for Stark and Volrath for the next few years.
Oh,
Just whipping at him, Stark running errands, and Volrath just creating more and more flowstone.
do it better.
Exactly. Yeah. So, getting back to Dominaria, we left Miri, Gerard, and Raphaelos when they were in hiding, and eventually they came out of hiding and traveled back to Yavimay to continue their training with Multani. When they arrived, though, Multani was gone, and the cave they had all been living in had been destroyed
Oh no.
by Voul when he was searching for his stepbrother. So they traveled around for a while until they ran into another Jamuran native named Sisay.
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 Hey, it's good old to say.
Yeah, she's eating something in that picture.
Yeah, she's got
Looks
like a
like a
like a
yellow
bit-
pepper.
yeah, like a bell pepper. There you go.
Yeah.
She took a chomp out of it.
And it looks like she's eating the top, like where the stem is.
Well,
Yeah.
you gotta eat the stem first. That's
Yes.
where the nutrients are.
What are
Exactly.
you saying?
Exactly.
So by the time the three companions met Sisay, she was already the captain of Skyship Weatherlight. So now we need to take a bit of a trip back in time to find out where she came from and how she became the captain of
Wait, so
Weatherlight.
is she basically like Han Solo?
Yeah, she's kind of like Han Solo, and her first mate is kind of like Chewbacca, actually, also in stature.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
That's fun.
So, like we just mentioned, Sisay was Jamuran, the same supercontinent that Volrath was from, and she was born in the Jamuran country Zalfir, which is the same country that Teferi was from. So, just a fun little fact there. Much like Gerard and Hannah, who was Baron and Rain's daughter, Sisay and her family were part of Urza's bloodline project. Sisay was unaware of this, and it's unclear how much her ancestors knew about their role in the project. In addition to Sisay's family being manipulated by the project, Urza also left Weatherlight with them for safekeeping. And that took place near the end of the project, and by that point Sisay had already been born, so that makes her and Gerard about the same age.
Okay, so in the last tale as old as time that you were telling us about, what was our bloodlines?
Bloodlines, yeah.
We got really acquainted with Baron and
Yes.
Rain, and Hannah is their daughter.
Yes, and she's
Isn't she also the same age as Gerard?
yes, and like her birth is sort of it like bookends the end of Bloodlines. I think we just like briefly mentioned it at the end because she's just a little baby, and is much more important to Gerard's also a baby, but he's getting rescued by Karn, and that's a much more exciting topic. But yes.
I care about these characters. That's all.
No, I care too. I
know.
Anyways, the Phyrexians found out about Urza leaving Weatherlight with Sisay's family, and much like they did with Keld and Benalia before it, they sent a raiding party to Zalfir to take the artifact and kill any who stood against them. And so a couple of things happened before the Phyrexians arrived. The first was that Sisay's family hid Weatherlight, and the second was that they hid Sisay, who was still just a child at this point. Unfortunately, the raiding party killed her family, and this meant that although she knew of Weatherlight's existence, her family was unable to tell her the whole truth about Urza, the legacy, and Phyrexia, or at least the truth that they knew, which again, we don't know. So she only knew that Weatherlight was part of a collection of magical artifacts that were capable of killing the Lord of the Wastes, and that was the name that the Zalfiran people gave to the leader of the ones that had killed her family, but who in truth was Yawgmoth. That's one of his other names, is Lord of the Wastes, which is kind of like a more sinister sounding name than Yawgmoth.
Yeah, that's a dope name.
Yeah, right? Lord of the Wastes. So then she knows that she's able... Well, she doesn't know that they're called Phyrexian, but she knows that she's able to kill these, whatever they are.
Yeah, she knows they're... well, yeah, she was so young, so I don't know if she has any memory of what they look like, but, she at least knows that they're not...
Human.
native to her country.
Yeah.
So sometime after those events, a young Sisay was captured by slavers who were sailing the seas surrounding Jamura. The slavers then got into trouble with the pirate ship Burning Vengeance, and the crew of the pirate ship rescued Sisay and allowed her to burn the captain of the slaver ship alive in their brig.
Damn.
Which is badass, but also sounds like a fire hazard on a ship that's presumably made of wood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
in the brig.
Yeah, why would you do it in the brig?
Yeah.
Well, the ship is called Burning Vengeance, so I have a feeling the ship was made
To burn prisoners?
and to
Yeah.
get vengeance. Yes,
Yeah.
by burning.
That is a fair assumption.
That's a good point. That is a good
Is
point.
Burning Vengeance a card?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I'm pretty sure it's a card that deals damage to either a target or a creature equal to a creature's power.
Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, Burning Vengeance deals 2 damage to any target.
Yeah. Okay, I'm totally
Cool.
off.
Okay.
It's an enchantment.
Yes.
It says, mist is the geist's sorrow, wind is their pain, fire is their vengeance.
That's funny because this book came out in 1998, and this would have, I think this is like this book kind of encapsulates the Tempest, Exodus, and Stronghold sets. But the first printing of this card was from Innistrad, which is like I think 2011 maybe.
Yeah, it also looks like they're in like a building or something, like in a crypt or something, in the art. Yeah.
Oh. Anyways, Sisay then asked to join the crew of Burning Vengeance as their cabin boy, to which Captain Murad agreed to. So she worked her way up from cabin boy until she was a full-fledged sailor.
Not really solid on the gender neutral terms.
Well,
here,
it's just
are ya,
cabin.
Burning
It just
Vengeance?
doesn't matter what you are. You're cabin boy. You can. There's no cabin girl. You can be like You could be like a Drake person.
Take your hands off my cabin boy.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. You got it. So, sometime after this, she recovered and took command of her birthright, Skyship Weatherlight. And in that time, in the time between Sisay taking command of Weatherlight and recruiting Gerard, Miri, and Raphaelos, she continued to search for the legacy artifacts, assembled a crew, and recruited her first mate, the Minotaur Tongarth, or Chewbacca.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome. She gets a Minotaur as a first mate. Yo.
Oh, yeah. I would not want to get stomped by one of those hoofs. That's for sure. I'd say that's the most the least intimidating thing about Tongarth is like his little baby hoofs. Like he's built like a tool shed, but then he's got these little hoofs. So it's just kind of funny when you see it. Like you can see other images of him. Like Coalition Victory is a good representation of his hoofs. They just look really small. So, anyways, we don't need to wade too deeply into Tongarth's past, except to say that he was a Minotaur warrior, also from Jamora. And Sisay also recruited Hannah, Orym, Krovax, and Squee.
Squee? Oh my god.
So we know a bit about Hannah already. So in addition to being Baron and Rain's daughter, she was also Weatherlight's navigator and a result of the Bloodline Project. And she and Orym met while they were studying at a university in Argiv. Hannah studying artifice and Orym studying the healing arts. So naturally Orym was Weatherlight's healer or doctor.
Cool. Hannah looks like a babe.
She is, yeah. She certainly does.
Yeah.
Squee was Weatherlight's cabin boy, and he was also a goblin. So he's not Goblin Boy. See, it's just cabin boy. It's always cabin boy.
Oh, man. That's his qualification.
Squee!
Yeah,
cabin boy. I'm a cabin boy, and I'm a goblin.
And the last of Weatherlight's core members was Krovax. He was another result of the Bloodline Project, as well as the son of an aristocratic family from Urborg. We mentioned a bit about Urborg in our Slivers Explained episode, so if you want to know more about that part of Dominaria, go back and give that a listen. And Krovax was Weatherlight's muscle. He was sort of like, I guess in D&D terms, he'd be like the fighter, or maybe the berserker. I don't really know D&D terms that well. So
yeah, I think fighter is a good place to start.
Yeah, I think fighter's good because he's not like crazy, but he does get a little crazy. That's a bit of a spoiler.
So pretty much most of the crew is from the project.
Yes, yeah, we got like Hannah, Sisay, Krovax, Gerard. Karn's not really from the project, but he's part of the legacy.
He's part of the whole thing. Like
it's all rolled in. Yeah,
exactly. He helped Urza with that. So,
and I helped.
That'd be great. That'd be great on a T-shirt, Karn, and saying like, "And I helped."
Yeah.
And I wore hats.
So, getting back to Krovax, he growing up in a noble family in Urborg, he was somewhat isolated from the local population, and when the opportunity arose for him to join the crew of Weatherlight, he jumped at it. Another important detail about Krovax's early life was that in addition to being isolated, his only companion was the angel Selenia.
Huh.
So she was originally a pure white angel from Sarah's realm. She existed long before the events in this story, and she was a venerated warrior during the time that the Archangel Radiant was in control of the realm.
I was going to ask if she was part of like that crazy zealot crew.
She certainly was. And if you'd like to find out more about that crazy zealot crew, go back and listen to our Time Stream series, which was around episode 85. I believe that started. So during the Phyrexian invasion of Sarah's realm, which was kind of a more clandestine invasion, But I guess that's the way they've always done it. This Rath thing is kind of new. We're just gonna get everybody there immediately.
All these new age Rath people coming around.
Usually we just trickle it in. So Selenia was taken prisoner and transformed into a dark version of her former self. The Phyrexians then gave her the task of keeping watch over Krovax's family, and she was forced to stay with them because the Phyrexians bound her to an artifact that the family possessed. So the Phyrexians kind of taking a different route here, whereas with Sisay's family and Gerard's family, they just, or even what Gatha was doing in Keld, we're just going to wipe it out. They're like, we're just going to keep an eye on these guys.
Interesting.
In terms of like families involved in the Bloodline project.
Yeah.
And Gatha's thing was also an extension of the Bloodline project. He was just doing his own thing. Krovax eventually fell in love with Selenia, but she was unable to return the young man's affections, and that was another driving force in Krovax deciding to leave Urborg. And when he did, he took the artifact with him. So when he left with the artifact, Selenia was also freed from service to the family, and for Krovax, that meant that the angel could no longer protect his family. But we know that she was never really there to protect anybody, or at least that's my assumption. But it's just important to understand these events, so we understand Krovax's actions a little later on in the story.
So she was unable to return the man's affection. Does that mean like physically unable, emotionally unable, or she just didn't like him?
I don't know about that. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't get into that. I don't know if it's because she's like, being controlled by Phyrexians that she can't. That's like not part of her programming now. I'm really not sure.
They had bound her to that artifact. So maybe it's part of that where she's just like not able. Questions.
Yeah, she might just not be into him. I think that's
he's cute.
That's probably what it is. Yeah, he's fine.
He's got a nice braid.
He's not my cup of tea. I mean, he's really like big and like muscly. That's not really my thing. But anyways,
we're not talking about your type.
Yes. No, we're talking about Selenia's type, and the answer is I don't know. Maybe
big old question mark.
Maybe it's just like I only like angels.
Could be.
Sure.
Yeah. So, getting back to Sisay recruiting Gerard, Miri, and Raphaelos. So, one night, the three companions were in a tavern. They were playing a version of darts, but instead of throwing darts, they were throwing knives. Sisay watched the three playing their game and eventually approached the trio to challenge Gerard in a contest of knife throwing.
Ooh.
She could tell that the trio would make fine additions to her crew and wagered that if she won the contest, the three would have to serve aboard Weatherlight. I really don't know what Gerard would have gotten if he would have won, but he didn't. So he, Miri, and Raphaelos joined the crew of Weatherlight, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's like, I hope it would have been something good, because it's like, hey, for the rest of your life, you're coming this way. If you lose, it's like, whoa, what do I win?
You are my slave now.
Yeah.
So once they were brought aboard the skyship, Sisay revealed to Gerard that she had been searching for the legacy artifacts since she had learned that they were scattered by Vul, the former. That's a fun thing to do. Like if you change your name, you can be like, if I change my name to like, I don't know.
Getrad.
Yeah.
Gerard.
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 I could be like, I'm Kevin, the former. Wink. So she asked Gerard if he and his companions would help her find them, and Gerard, knowing all about the legacy and the man that had stolen them, reluctantly agreed. Not that he had a choice, right?
Well, I mean, like, he's working for her already on the ship, so, like, what choice do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, they weren't really slaves, like, yes, she wanted them to join, but she also wants them to join willingly. If they really wanted to leave,
they could.
She's a good lady. And that's how they all got together. The most well-known crew of the Weatherlight, or what is it? What is Sisay's flavor text? The finest. What is it?
Right, because it's her on a little ship looking like a badass.
Well, they
in the picture.
They gave her another card in Modern Horizons, and she looks very similar. Mm-hmm. But it's the her leadership forged the Weatherlight's finest crew. Yeah. Nice. Wow, 2433 for the secret lair drop.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It should have been her knife skills forged the Weatherlight's
Hey.
crew.
Check out these sick knife skills, bro.
So there were of course many other crew members. It's a big ship, but for the purposes of this story, they were largely meat shields, as I like to call them. So we don't need to get too attached to them or even learn their names. We'll learn some of their names in the next book, but for now they're just.
Okay, I just want to go on record here before you read the next part that I made a prediction that this was going to happen at the end of Bloodlines.
Bloodlines. You did actually. Yes, you did. You did. So
Also, like, how are we supposed to feel sad when these people die if we don't get attached to them?
we don't need to feel sad. They'll just get more crew at the next port.
Just recruit them
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it's like watching the first season of The Witcher. You know, people are dying left, right, and center. And it's like, I don't know these people or care that they're dying.
Yeah, throw a coin at something or something,
Yeah.
however that song goes. I actually don't know the words.
Throw a coin at your something.
It's toss.
Toss. Yeah, it's toss a coin.
Riley. It is not throw a coin at your something.
Throw a handful of change
Oh,
at
boy.
something.
At your mother.
I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that. So, one more thing before we move on to the next part to mention is that Gerard and Hannah fell in love during this time period, which is something that Ainsley predicted at the end of our Bloodlines series.
Thank you.
I do remember that. And this was, much to Miri's chagrin. But don't worry, the worst Miri ever acted towards Hannah was indifferent. So everybody got along. Miri never tried to like get Hannah.
Yeah, just a casual passive aggressiveness.
She didn't want to like create drama.
She's like, man, I should have slept with that sexy cat man.
Yeah, she should have. She should have. And when Miri says I don't like drama, she's actually serious. She's not like when people say, "Oh, I hate drama."
And then they sit there watching it unfold, eating popcorn. Yeah.
So the newly formed crew continued to search for the legacy artifacts for a couple of years until an urgent message drew Krovax and the rest of them back to Urborg. The message stated that Krovax's family estate was under attack by a pair of unstoppable wrathy beasts. When the crew arrived in Urborg, they found that Krovax's family had been slaughtered by the beasts, and interestingly, that every other noble family had been spared.
Uh-oh.
Ooh. Targeted.
That's a targeted strike.
Those are
Yeah.
scary beasts.
Yeah.
They are
I
limmy.
actually have a couple of those cards. The one on the right there is Gallowbraid.
Gallowbraid, yeah. I think they might be reserve list. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, the one on the left is I can't remember his name, but he's flying and he's got like a cumulative upkeep similar to Gallowbraid.
Yeah.
Cumulative upkeep 1 life.
Yeah, exactly. But they were playable back in their day.
Oh yeah, they were.
Well, the guy on the left who has flying has wings, so that makes sense. The guy on the right has what looks like a wig, a Keith Urban wig.
It's a nice wig. I don't think.
So what power does that give him?
I think it just makes him stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
he's-
Rapunzel.
Yeah,
He's like he doesn't have indestructible
No,
or like
well, according to his card, it gives him trample.
excellent.
Yeah,
The wig.
there you go.
Yeah, the creatures are mesmerized by the wig and they can't block effectively.
If its skin looks like stone, it is only to match its heart.
Ooh,
Oh, I thought I was gonna say it's only to match its hair.
wig. It's like,
looks
hey buddy,
good.
you got to get one of these wigs.
Get this wig.
So this was another Phyrexian plot to engineer a powerful servant, much like they did with Vul the Former. The attack on Krovax's family was planned to set Krovax on a dark path that would hopefully end in him becoming a minion of Phyrexia, and who knows, maybe even the next Evancar of Wrath.
Who knows?
They just got a new one and they're like, get a new one.
Why not? YOLO.
I think the position has a pretty high turnover rate. So, with Krovax deciding he had to avenge his family, he moved to attack the Phyrexians. Knowing that Krovax was no match for them on his own, Sisay and the rest of the crew joined him in the fight.
Oh.
The crew and the Phyrexians were evenly matched until Raphaelos was killed.
Ooh.
Whoa.
He's dead. Yeah,
Damn.
He
he's
was
dead.
such a chill guy.
And he was also an elf, so he was basically immortal.
Wow.
Yeah. So at this point, things began to turn in the beast's favor. And in a fit of desperation, Krovax revealed the artifact that he'd taken when he'd originally left Urborg, the one that bound the angel Selenia to his family, and he used the artifact to summon her, and with her help, they were able to slay the beasts. So yes, they won, but at great cost.
Yeah, Raphaelos.
Yeah, R.I.P. Raphaelos.
Yeah.
We'll miss you, buddy.
This probably explains
See,
why
we're
he's banned
sad.
in Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he did.
Yeah.
See, and we care about his death because we know his name.
That's right. We do. So, a couple of pivotal things occurred at this point. The first one was the beginning of the end for Krovax as a quote-unquote good guy character. This is sort of his descent into, I guess, being a bad guy. You know, spoiler alert, anybody who doesn't know that. But it's a very similar story with Vul. It's right. It's like this pivotal thing that happened. You're losing your family. You know, Vul lost his future, and you know that makes a man upset.
Plus, you know, Krovax got friend-zoned hard.
Yeah. I think he's, you know what? I think he's probably equally upset about that as he is with his whole family being slaughtered by a couple of Rathy beasts. One of them wearing a pretty nice wig.
I mean, Selenia is.
Oh, she's stacked.
Babe.
Oh yeah, she looks good. And this is sort of the first time we see the real Krovax. He blames Selenia for his family's and by extension Raphaelos' death. But we should consider some things here. One of them is how responsible is Selenia for anything she had done since Phyrexians took over Sarah's realm and started controlling the Archangel Radiant. And after that, she was essentially made into a Phyrexian and forced to spy on Krovax's family under the guise of protection. Then Krovax took the artifact that bound her to Urborg, and she was freed. Not really. But when you look at it like that, at least the last part, the part that she wasn't there for, was kind of Krovax's fault. But for Selenia's part, when was the last time she made a decision that was her own? So it's kind of hard to feel or to have too much contempt against her as a character at this point, anyways. And also, I was thinking about this too. Because Selenia was sent there to spy on them under the guise of protection, who knows what would have even happened if she had been there before Weatherlight's crew arrived. If, her Phyrexian masters had ordered her not to fight the beasts, then Krovax's family's fate would have been the same. So
yeah, maybe even like when they got back there, she would be fighting them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. We just don't know. But anyways, of course, Krovax wasn't aware of any of this. And so being upset that his family had been killed and Raphaelos had been killed, and Krovax decided to remain in Urborg and to not return to Weatherlight with the rest of the crew. And the second...
why? Like, why? Why would you just stay in Urborg? Nothing's there anymore.
Well, he stays there with his family's bodies, and Selenia is still there with him too, because now he's using the artifact again to bind her to him, because the artifact does make her protect his family. So he stays. He's just upset, I guess. Grief makes people do strange things.
Yeah.
So, going back to the second pivotal thing that occurred after the Urborg affair, Gerard and Miri, grieving over Raphaelos and not wanting anyone else to die on their behalf, also chose to leave Weatherlight and the mission to collect the legacy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're breaking up. I feel like they just got together.
Yeah, did they think it was going to be easy, or like... You're just gonna fucking breeze through this mission?
Boom, boom, boom. No problem.
Yeah.
So obviously Hannah was upset that her love Gerard left the crew, but what are you gonna do, right? She's she believes in their mission, so she stays. And like I just mentioned, Krovax stayed in Urborg with Selenia and grew even more in love with her. And again, she was not able to return his feelings, and that drove Krovax kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's not a good situation at all.
Yeah. And
That's toxic, Krovax.
yeah, buddy. Come on,
dude.
Come on, buddy. So he eventually destroyed the artifact that bound Selenia to him, and he thought that if she was truly free, she would be able to return his feelings, but no.
If you love them, let them go, and if they were meant for you, they'll come back.
And if they leave, you gonna go
you're
crazy.
gonna be sad.
If you
She's
love
like,
them,
that's what
you're
they don't
crazy,
tell you
I'm
about
out.
that.
binds them to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they don't tell you about that whole thing. Like if if you love something, set it free, and if it comes back, it's
It was
yours.
meant to
It was
be.
meant to be.
That's it.
But they don't tell you that if it doesn't come back, you go a little nuts. So don't set it free unless you're certain it's gonna come back. That would be my advice.
Yeah. Don't listen to him. That is not Turn One Soul Ring's editorial stance on
that
that.
just broke Riley. That's great.
No, that's my personal stance. No,
that's
that's
awesome.
my stance of the show.
Oh man.
So Selenia literally just flew away. She's like, I'm free now. Bye.
She's like the genie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bye.
And that, of course, made Krovax even more crazy and upset. So over the following few years, he became more and more unstable. And if that wasn't enough, just, Selenia leaving, becoming more unstable, hanging out with, horribly murdered dead bodies. Because he was just hanging out with the dead bodies. He didn't do anything with them.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a bad idea. The act of destroying the artifact cursed him to a life of misery. He was now destined to destroy all that he loved.
Oh shit.
Well,
Yeah, the artifact was cursed, and if you destroy it, boom, that's what happens.
Is he gonna kill Selenia?
Is that where
Well,
we get
we're
the
gonna
card?
have to wait and see. That's a part 3. That's
a part 3
She's not
reveal?
coming back till part 3. So,
Okay.
yeah. So moral of the story: if you love something, don't break it, because it might curse you.
Really?
Well, yeah, okay.
So, moving on to the other characters here, the other crew members of Weatherlight. Miri returned to Lanamore to inform Raphaelis' kin of the elf's death, while Gerard returned to his native Benalia to join the Benelish infantry, and so the two friends parted. And much like Krovax, they were now alone. Not to the same degree as Krovax, as he was hanging out with a bunch of dead bodies, but in effect, they had lost the families they had chosen.
Yeah. Krovax, man.
I could just picture him having a tea party with all his dead bodies.
Yeah, he
Oh
puts
my
them into
God.
chairs and stuff. It's like lovely party.
Yeah, makes like voices for them. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh God. So Sisay, Tongarth, Hana, Orim, and Squee, and the rest of Weatherlight's crew, the aforementioned meat shields, continued their search for the Weatherlight, or for the legacy artifacts, and over the next few years, they found a few more. One of them was the Thran Tome, an ancient book containing all the knowledge and designs of Thran technology. And Urza had also added to the tome while it was in his possession. Sisay learned a couple of important details from this book. First, it informed her that her ship, Weatherlight, was itself a part of the legacy, and that it could move between worlds or plane shift. A fact we already know.
Cool.
It's good that
I
she
didn't
learned
know.
that.
Nice.
Yeah, me and Captain Sisay both learned something new.
Well, they do it at the end. They do it at the end of time streams. They go
Oh.
to Sarah's realm
Yeah.
with it.
That's
On
right.
its maiden voyage.
Oh.
They go there to power the Thran crystal inside of it with the white matter from Sarah's realm collapsing, and then it collapses.
Well, I apologize. I was more caught up in the potential love story and whatnot.
That's okay. That's why you're here. We all have different interests when it comes to this stuff. That's why it makes for such good content. Like I just mentioned, the Thran Power Stone is what allowed the ship to plane shift. In addition to that, it was also just its regular engine. But the tome also informs Sisay of a plane called Rath, a plane that we've discussed at length on this podcast. And as important as those discoveries are to this story, the one artifact that Sisay found during this time period that is one of my favorites is the Silverman himself. That's right. Sisay recovered Karn from the village where Vul left him so many years earlier.
Holding
Yay.
on to
Oh, nice.
The touchstone.
the touchstone.
Yeah. Right. So in addition to recovering Karn, she also recovered the touchstone, which was still in his grasp.
Carney.
He's
What
back.
a good guy.
He's solid.
Good guy, Karn.
Good guy. Carney.
So this is where our old friend Stark comes back into the story. While Sisay was recovering Karn and the touchstone, she was approached by the Rathi native, and Stark told her all about how Karn ended up a statue. He told Sisay that Gerard's former brother Vul had become Volrath, the Evankar of Rath, and I actually never noticed that it's like Volrath and Rath. Anyways, what he planned to do to Gerard and the legacy. Stark obviously left out the details regarding his own part in helping Vul become Volrath, but that makes sense because he's a duplicitous guy. So based on what Stark knew regarding the legacy and everything else that this story hinges on, Sisay recruited him as a member of Weatherlight's crew. At this point in the story, Stark was no longer the loyal errand boy for Phyrexia or Volrath, because we mentioned earlier that he's desperate. He wants to save his daughter from the dungeons of the Stronghold. So Stark planned to play both sides against each other, and more importantly, to use his new status as crew member to free his daughter. But how would he achieve this, I wonder?
Is it through shady means?
It's pretty shady.
We'll find out
Shady.
today.
He's a shady guy. But you know what? We're gonna come to feel pretty, not badly, but kind of
Conflicted about him?
kind of like, kind of feel sorry for him. We're gonna.
pity.
I came to feel pretty sorry for this guy. So, Stark knew that Volrath's greatest enemy was Gerard, or at least that's how Volrath saw it, so he needed a way to lure him to Rath to face Volrath. By that time, Gerard had gone through his own transformation. Since returning to Benalia, Gerard had become the master at arms of the Benalish infantry, which would be a total match for a completed, shape-shifting Phyrexian, and Volrath was also a master of flowstone manipulation. That's an exaggeration. I don't think he would really be a match, but Stark's plan was to lure Gerard to Rath, and if Gerard defeated Volrath, Stark would be able to rescue his daughter. And it's kind of a go-for-broke rescue plan, because if Gerard didn't defeat Volrath, then he's kind of SOL, but that was basically his plan. Like I said, he's a desperate guy. So, to lure Gerard to Rath, Stark betrayed Sisay to Volrath, and the Evankar kidnapped her and the legacy artifacts she had collected, except for Karn.
Wow.
Just getting her. I don't know if he sent her a little package and she disappeared into a portal, but he kidnapped her.
In each iteration of Sisay in these drawings, her breasts have gotten progressively bigger.
Well, it must be something it must be just...
Something in the water, yeah.
Maybe it's the Thran, the radiation from the Thran crystal.
Yeah.
Could be. So once she and the artifacts were taken to Rath, Stark told the rest of the crew who had kidnapped their captain and begged them to find Gerard so that he could help them save Sisay. The crew that remembered Gerard knew what an asset the man could be on a rescue mission, so they set sail for Benalia.
Who's this chap?
That's Gerard.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at him.
Man, Steve Stunning over there.
Yeah, he's got a hardy chin strap beard. He's looking good.
He looks like a young Mark Hamill.
He looks like an old Mark Hamill.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, he looks like how Mark Hamill looked in the new Star Wars films, but without as many wrinkles.
Yeah, this definitely isn't my favorite depiction of Gerard, but the art that this card was taken from is like Benalish something. So like it is Gerard, but it's like I'm just working for the army. The other depictions of Gerard are pretty sweet. Like there's just like he has his own card.
I would like to see the Gerard card.
I think it's just Gerard Capuchin. I think it's from Invasion. What is going on with the internet? It's like
Oh yeah. He looks like oh yeah. He's handsome. Look at him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he looks good.
He's fierce.
He's very fierce. He's like, I'll get you with my sword. Ha ha!
Yeah.
Poke.
So, anyways, the Weatherlight arrived in Benalia, and Tongarth, now acting captain, traveled to the Benelish infantry headquarters to explain the situation to Gerard and ask him to rejoin Weatherlight's crew in order to rescue Sisay. And this was a task that Tongarth wasn't too keen on. There was no love lost between Gerard and the Minotaur, and that was mostly Tongarth's fault. Tongarth felt like Gerard hadn't earned the greatness that he was supposedly destined for. He also felt like Gerard didn't take that destiny very seriously. And while there was a lot to unpack on both sides there, Gerard, and to a lesser degree, Miri's departure from Weatherlight were acts that deeply hurt and disappointed Tongarth.
Aww.
He feels deeply, and he's a very honorable Minotaur.
He's probably like, hey, we got an awesome team together here. Like, I'm excited for what we can do. And then everyone
Yeah.
just up and leaves. And he's like, what the hell, guys?
Don't own the team. So, like Sisay, Tongarth believed that assembling the legacy was paramount to defeating Yawgmoth and defending Dominaria. And when Gerard left, he abandoned that goal. At the time, Gerard claimed he was leaving because he didn't want anyone else to die on his behalf like Raphaelos did, but Tongarth saw things differently. He believed that Raphaelos died as part of the group that was assembling the legacy, and that he fought for that goal and for his fellow crew members, and instead of abandoning Weatherlight, Gerard should have honored his friend's sacrifice and doubled down on assembling the legacy. And it made it feel like Raphaelos died for nothing, where Gerard was concerned.
I totally see where he's coming from.
Yeah,
I agree.
I do too, definitely.
Yeah.
He should have got more friends and let them die.
No.
And like I've never really been a fan of this trope. I mean, I know it's like it's like a hero's growth thing. Like the hero is like, I don't want anyone else to die for me. But it's like, dude, you're not looking at the big picture here. You're being a real wiener.
Yeah.
So that's
Man
I've
up.
never been I've never been a fan of that kind of I guess it's a storytelling device, but and that's the big difference between Tongarth and Gerard at this point. Tongarth does see the bigger picture, and whether he's right about it will remain to be seen, but he knows that Weatherlight's goals are more important than any single member of the crew. So getting back to Gerard's re-enlistment. Gerard was at first not interested in helping, but the Minotaur tried to convince him by telling him that when Gerard left Weatherlight in the search for the legacy artifact, he was turning his back on his obligations. And at this point, there's a big part of Gerard that feels like he's not beholden to those obligations. Weatherlight and the search for the legacy was a task that somebody else decided he had to undertake for him and the rest of the children of the Bloodline Project. And, from Gerard's perspective, it doesn't feel good to feel like you don't have any choice, that your destiny has already been decided, and you can't do anything about it. Gerard's life has always been and will always be mired in the decisions that Urza made for him. But it's basically like Gerard has no choice, but, of course, there's always a choice. At the end of the day, he's going to continue to be hunted by Phyrexia, and so will the legacy until it's been captured or destroyed. Eventually, Tongarth convinces Gerard to help, not by using his obligations to the legacy, but by telling him that if he didn't help them rescue Sisay, she would die because of what he chose not to do. This worked because even though Gerard still felt and will for the rest of his life feel responsible for Raphaelos' death because of the choices he made, he couldn't live with the responsibility of Sisay's death if he did nothing about it. And he's still not seeing the bigger picture here, but
I think he's getting closer.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Also, just go finish with the Weatherlight stuff. The faster you do that, the faster you can go do something else.
Yeah, the faster you can get back to being the master at arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gerard had to wrap up his affairs in Benalia, and after a couple of days, he was aboard Weatherlight once again. With Sisay absent, Gerard was the acting captain until they could rescue her. Tongarth preferred his usual role as first mate, and besides, the ship did belong to Gerard.
I get that.
Yeah, play to your strengths, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So once Gerard was introduced to the new crew members and had reacquainted himself with his old friends, he let them know why he had come back. So this is Gerard speaking in reference to the legacy.
You're right. It doesn't mean a thing to me.
Gerard said softly.
If it gets me what I want, or what I know is right, I'll use it. But if it doesn't, I'll forget about it. We can just toss it over the side when we reach Rath. I'm back for you, for Tongarth, and for the rest of the crew. And most important, I'm back for Sisay.
Yeah.
Did I say Tongarth right? Tangarth?
Tangarth.
Tongarth.
His name's Tongarth.
A Minotaur man.
I'm Tangarth.
So, Tongarth then informed their temporary captain that they would need a wizard for their trip to Rath.
Wizard.
You're a wizard.
Oh boy.
So they needed to stop in Talaria. Hannah knew just the wizard from her time growing up there. They needed the wizard to manipulate the Thran crystal in Weatherlight's engine so they could successfully plane shift. But before they could do that, Gerard wanted to scoop up another former crew member, so they lifted off and headed for Llanowar to get Mary.
Mary.
So once everything was squared away shipwise, Gerard settled into Sisay's cabin. He looked over her journal regarding the search for the legacy artifacts. He also found the Thran tome, which revealed to him for the first time how important Weatherlight was to the legacy. The importance being that Weatherlight itself was a part of the legacy, and the other artifacts could be used in conjunction with it as a weapon. Things we've mentioned previously, and in all those documents he also discovered a spell that would lift the effects the touchstone had on Karn, but because he still wasn't aware of Karn's whereabouts, this information wasn't immediately valuable to him. But that's going to change in a couple of sentences. Gerard then moved on to wandering around the ship and reacquainting himself with her features. He came across the pieces of the legacy that Sisay had collected, and to his surprise, he came upon his old protector. Silent and motionless, Karn stood upright, still clutching the touchstone. And that's when the spell came in handy. Gerard used it to reactivate his old friend, and Karn was brought back to life, in a sense. Karn had been essentially frozen at the point in time when he'd been deactivated, which meant that he was in anguish over the death of the young boy he had caused. He told Gerard of the pacifistic vow he had made and why, and even though this made Karn a far less effective member of the crew, Gerard understood, and he was just happy to have everybody back together again.
Aww.
Except for Sisay.
Yeah, it's like an episode of Cheers.
Sometimes you just want to go where everybody knows your name.
That's right.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, Weatherlight eventually arrived in Llanowar, and Gerard, Tongarth, and Hannah went into the forest to search for Miri. When they found her and asked her to rejoin the crew in order to rescue Sisay, she agreed, but on one condition.
Gerard had to bang her.
Oh, yeah. Gerard had to impregnate her, so not just one banging, like, you gotta stick it, buddy.
You gotta stick it.
I don't know if that works in the magic lore, but it's worth a try. I bet Urza knows. He probably fickled with that in the Bloodline Project.
Yeah.
He's like, it's just crazy enough to work. So the village that Miri had been living in had an Aberoth growing underground nearby, and she wanted them to help her and the elves kill it before she joined them. And this part isn't terribly important to the overall story, but this is one of those cards that kind of scared me when I was a kid, and it's actually on the reserve list. But I always wondered what it was, and also in the art you can see like Weatherlight in the background there.
Cool.
But so I just wanted to mention it in this part of the story because it is kind of cool actually. So it's a giant soil monster that will destroy everything in its path, but it grows underground until it's ready to emerge. And so I wondered why they couldn't just dig down to it and kill it while it was still sleeping, but it doesn't work because if you try to dig around the creature, it drives its white root-like tendrils it uses to leach nutrients from the ground even deeper. And the result of that is that when the Aberoth emerges, it's far bigger, stronger, and its skin is more like stone instead of soil.
Wow.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So,
what a particular creature.
Yeah.
And they found all this out about it.
So how do
I think it also has a cumulative upkeep, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
It does.
just like
So
all the
the
great creatures.
Aberoth is a 9/9 for 6 mana.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but the cumulative
That's a good
upkeep
rate.
is you put a -1/-1 counter on it.
Oh, yeah,
That's
that's
less
not so
good.
good. Just have Solemnity on the board. You're fine.
Ooh. The Weatherlight banked sharply as the colossal beast rose up to crush the Lone Rider. My bet's on the dirt, Gerard said flatly.
Jeez, Gerard, come on, buddy.
Come
Have a little
on.
faith. So, they were able to vanquish the soil beast, but it's kind of cool how they do it. Gerard having the touchstone now, like it's out of Karn's grasp, and having a little bit of ingenuity, seeing that it deactivates machines. Gerard essentially hops out of the back of Weatherlight, and with the touchstone in hand, on top of the Aberoth, and when the touchstone comes into contact with the soil monster, it starts to disintegrate, and Gerard basically rides this disintegrating mass of soil down until the Aberoth disappears, and he's just standing on the ground.
Cool.
Oh. That's a cool scene.
Having fulfilled the condition, Miri rejoined the crew, and they headed for Talaria to get their wizard. So when they arrived, they were greeted by Hannah's father, Baron.
Daddy Baron.
Nice.
Still seemingly ageless. They had thought that they could convince Baron to go with them to Rath, as he already knew how to manipulate Weatherlight's plane-shifting power stone, but he declined their request. He's like, I'm old.
I'm too old for that shit.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Baron's pretty dope, though.
He is dope.
Oh, yeah, he is. He's like, this is kind of beneath me. I'm not,
And he's such a good person. Like, he has really good morals. And he always kind of was like, okay, Urza, you're flying off the handle here.
He was like
Yeah.
Urza's connection to humanity.
Yeah.
To his own humanity. So Baron did volunteer one of his former students, the talented, arrogant, and young wizard Erte.
Oh my god, look at this picture of him.
He's like,
Oh
he's like,
my God.
forget about it. I got my highlights. Don't sweat it.
He
check my
thinks
clothesline.
He's the shit.
Oh yeah, he thinks he's hot shit. Oh yeah.
Oh my god, but he's like a sleazy dude.
He's a little sleazy, yeah. So at the time, Erte had just been granted full journeyman status at the academy and was looking for a new challenge, so he agreed to join them in the rescue mission. They brought the young wizard on board, and he began to get to know the power stone that he would need to manipulate to get them safely to Rath. And I'm picturing like he's like feeling it up and kind of like hugging on it and like talking to it, but I don't really know.
Oh,
They don't get into
Power
like too many
Stone.
details. He's like,
So there we go.
tell me your secrets. Oh yeah.
The flavor text on Urtai Wizard Adept's card is just, was that it?
Yes, he's very arrogant, and his card, also reserve list, is it's just like 2 and 2 blue, tap it to counter target spell, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Play
Yeah,
this
built,
ability as an interrupt.
Yeah, as an interrupt, that's right. They had just a couple more stops to make before they plane shifted, and the next one was Urborg. So, like we mentioned, Krovax had spent these past couple of years with nothing else to keep him company but his family's dead bodies, having tea parties. Imagine like he like nudges the table at a tea party by accident, and like one of their severed heads like falls off or something.
He's
know,
like,
it's-
Oh.
whoopsie-daisy. Yeah.
He rushes over to like put it back on.
Oh, Daddy, let me fix you. Let me fix you. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
So the crew of Weatherlight wasn't aware of that fact, and that Krovax had become more and more unstable by that time. The only thing he was interested in was finding the Dark Angel Selenia and enacting his revenge on her. Mm-hmm. Revenge. Kind of like Vul was just interested in revenge, but Vul didn't go like nuts. You know, like I think he kept his eye on the prize. Krovax is gets a little more kooky.
Love will do that to a man.
Oh yeah. So they welcomed him back with open arms. They're giving hugs, and they're like, "You kind of smell putrid." And he's like, "It's fine." So well, he's just been hanging out with dead bodies. Like I'm sure he hasn't been showering. Lastly, the last crew member they needed to find was Stark, because he was the only man that they knew that had been to Rath, and so he was the only man that they knew that could be their guide once they arrived. So after a bit of asking around, they found Stark being held prisoner by a warlord named Meraxus, who happened to be on Volrath's payroll. And he's also from Kelds. Notice the rippling muscles.
Yeah. I wonder how much he can bench with his neck.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously. He is so veiny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's ready to pop.
That's some serious girth.
And yeah, he's super veiny, and then he has like a 28-inch waist.
Yeah.
Like he's that, come on.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah.
So Gerard, Miri, and Tongarth were successful in freeing Stark from where he was being held captive once they found him. But the warlord and his men gave chase and eventually caught up to and cornered them. Surrounded and out of options, Stark told the warlord that he had lured Gerard and his friends there so that they could be captured for Volrath. Which wasn't true, but Stark was just trying to save his own life. Luckily for Gerard, Miri, and Tongarth, Weatherlight suddenly landed on most of the warlord's crew, surrounding them.
Just squish.
Squish, absolutely.
Oops.
That's efficient.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say meat shields. So the airship crushed most of them, and the ones that weren't killed in the landing ran away, all but Meraxus. Knowing that if he lost Stark and failed to capture Gerard, Meraxus, knowing that if he lost his prisoner and failed to capture Gerard, he would be at the mercy of Volrath. So he engaged Gerard in a sword fight. Stark and Weatherlight's crew watched as the two fought, and eventually Stark snuck up behind his captor and buried his knife in Meraxus's back. Looks like a little weenie in this picture.
He looks like such a little weenie.
Yeah.
Gerard isn't looking his best either.
He's had his shirt all ripped.
Look at his face. He's like, eh.
He probably ripped it himself before the fight. He's like, yeah, you think you're muscly? Check out these guns.
He's like bleeding and he's probably taking a hit or two.
Oh, yeah. So, Gerard wasn't thrilled with the dishonorable killing, but Stark agreed to guide them through Rath, so they went. Finally. So by that point, Urte had gotten to know the plane-shifting Power Stone, and he was confident he would be able to use it to input the coordinates to Rath. So when the time came to plane shift, everything went off without a hitch. And this is where their ease of travel ended, because shortly after they arrived in the barren orange-yellow landscape that was Rath, the Weatherlight was intercepted and attacked by the Predator Airship, the Evankar's flagship and a symbol of his power to all who lived on Rath. So Predator was a Rathi Phyrexian airship built for the explicit purpose of controlling the core Dal, Vec, and Skyshroud elf populations of Rath. Those populations had very little ability to fight against such a vessel, which resulted in it earning the nickname Scourge of the Skyshroud.
Hey.
The 500-foot-long airship was made of metal and Phyrexian technology, meaning that it was heavily armored and armed over and above Weatherlight. Although the two ships didn't look all that different. Predator was a much larger Phyrexian-looking Weatherlight, if you want to imagine it. And if you don't, you can check out a picture, because it does have its own card.
Yeah.
So Predator had a series of sails that were used when the weather was favorable, and interestingly, instead of rigging for the sails being rope or chains, they were composed of flowstone, meaning that anyone who could control flowstone could manipulate the mass of the airship with a mental command. In addition to the sails, Predator was also equipped with a Phyrexian engine that acted as the main propulsion for the vessel. The engine was actually semi-living and could walk itself out of the engine bay in the bottom of the ship when repairs were required, which is kind of fucking creepy.
Just this engine walking out, you're like,
I'm ready, guys.
So Predator was also equipped with a large harpoon-like weapon that could transmit an electrical current down its cable and could be used to attach itself to other vessels. And lastly, it featured 8 decks that held all manner of things, crews, weapons, and hundreds of Mogs that acted as goblin marines.
Ooh, boy.
The skyship was under the command of Grevin Ilvek. He was also in command of the Stronghold armies and was himself a partially altered human Phyrexian.
I like him. He's becoming looking.
You like him?
I think so.
He's got he's got a strong jaw. That's for sure. So he answered only to Volrath, who took pleasure in torturing the commander with the mimetic spine he had surgically implanted into Grevin. Volrath could control the spine telepathically, much the same way he controlled Flowstone. So if Grevin made a mistake, Volrath would hurt him with his spine, or make him dance, right? Because it's the spine. I don't know if that works, but that sounds kind of fun.
Grevin's neck is the same thickness as his waist. Just saying.
Yeah, it's a size. I think he's like a size 2.
Yeah, it's a thick neck or a thin waist. I don't. Whichever,
both. Yeah.
but.
Well, let's not body shame him.
I don't know. I'm not. I like a Grevin. He looks great.
So I'm not exactly sure how Grevin knew where to be, but I think it was sort of just luck that Predator was in the right place at the right time. Predator used the aforementioned harpoon weapon to impale Weatherlight's hull and began to retract the cable attached to it to pull the smaller ship closer. Once Weatherlight was close enough to Predator, Grevin's crew used smaller harpoon-like weapons to further pierce Weatherlight's hull. Grevin then ordered his legion of Mogs across the lines to overwhelm the crew of Weatherlight. And seeing as how they were unintelligent goblins, many of the Mogs didn't make the climb across the lines, but there were hundreds of them aboard Predator, and their lives really didn't matter to either Grevin or Volrath. So yeah, they're sort of like
I don't know how to climb.
Monkey barring along, and just a ton of them are falling.
Oh, they're stupid.
Yeah, they're dumb. Yeah, these guys are the real meat shields.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, with that many combatants, the Weatherlight's crew had their work cut out for them. They were able to hold their own, though, until Grevin decided to join the fray. Grevin's first target, once he made the climb between the two airships, was Gerard. He had other orders, of course. Volrath had ordered him to not only capture Gerard, but to also capture all the legacy artifacts, including Weatherlight. I mean, I get the bad guy trope where it's like, you have to capture my arch enemy so that I can like torture him and then kill him, but you know, it's sort of like is it Seth Green in the first Austin Powers where he's like, let's just kill them. I have a gun in my room, I'll go get it and we can just kill them right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we have to torture them. So Grevin also was ordered to collect the pieces of the legacy, which is something he delegated to his crew. And once aboard Weatherlight, Grevin immediately fell into combat with Gerard. And while Grevin was away from his ship, he had left his executive officer in command, a human by the name of Vati Ildal. By the time Weatherlight arrived on Rath, Vati had grown tired of Grevin's brutal leadership, and while his captain was dueling Gerard, Vati decided it'd be a good idea to fire one of Predator's cannons at Grevin.
Oh.
So a bit of he's looking for a little promotion there.
Oh, dang.
Is this Vati in the picture?
That's Vati.
He is psycho looking.
Yeah, he's got like he's dreaded his whole hair and his sideburns and his beard.
Yeah, it looks.
Well, and his eyes are yellow, and he has scary nails.
He does.
It also looks like he's being thrown off the side of a ship.
Well, we're gonna get to that, Rowdy, for Christ's sake. So, unfortunately for Vati, he missed Grevin, but the cannon shot did strike Weatherlight, and as a result, the ship was rocked, and Gerard was knocked off, falling into the sky shroud forest below.
Is that Hannah?
That's Hannah being like, "Wait,
My love.
I love you." So she's not a smart man, but she knows what love is.
What?
So furious that he had lost his prize and that his second in command had tried to kill him, Grevin quickly climbed back across to his ship and proceeded to throw his second in command overboard, leaving him with these parting words.
The fall will give you time to think on your failure.
Yeah.
Boom.
And I don't know if I mentioned this, but Vati gets impaled on a tree, so he's done.
Oh.
But it's like
he's real done.
It's like, you know, he goes over to fuck some shit up on the Weatherlight. And Vadi's just like, oh, now's my chance. It's like, of course. Now I'll just shoot him. He's like,
why didn't I think of that?
Dude, what are you doing?
So In the time that exchange took, Grevin's Mogs had carried the legacy artifacts, including Karn, from Weatherlight to Predator's cargo hold. Grevin then ordered the cords binding the two ships be cut and headed to the stronghold. And the Mogs just kind of pick up Karn and carry him, kind of like you'd like crowd surf somebody, because he's just like, oh, I'm not gonna fight.
Is that Karn?
That's Karn.
Yeah, it's like too bad Karn didn't decide to, fight,
Do anything,
do something. Like, jeez, that's so useless. It's like, come on.
So we mentioned that Grevin was ordered to capture Weatherlight, but by the time he killed Vadi, Weatherlight's crew had turned the tide against the Mogs, so Grevin decided to cut his losses and leave. And in the chaos of all this, Tahngarth had stowed away on Predator in order to rescue Sisay and the legacy artifacts. Something else curious occurred at this point in the fight. Krovax glimpsed his former protector, the Dark Angel Selenia, flying high above Predator, as if she was lying in wait.
Oh,
So she's wearing her job as a Phyrexian agent on her sleeve now, it would seem. So yeah, remember at this point, Krovax is kind of certifiably nuts at this point. He's only interested in revenge against Selenia. So just keep that in mind. So because of this, he didn't inform any of his crew members what he saw. But he did decide that he only had one goal while on Rath, to find and destroy Selenia. And this is a great example of why you don't want a wild card in your crew.
yeah.
Anyways, Weatherlight, heavily damaged and missing several crew members, had to make an emergency landing in the Skyshroud Forest, and that's where we'll pick back up for the conclusion of Rath Storm.
Oh, damn. Krovax, this is some real toxic masculinity stuff that you got going on here. It's like, oh, she wouldn't love me. Oh, so I'm going to be mad about it. And oh, I'm going to blame her for the death of my family, even though it was my fault. You stupid. Actually, no, I'm stupid.
Yeah. It's like, dude, there are other angels out there.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man, grow up.
I'm thinking like Vadi is like the true hero of the story. Just for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the Seth Green. He's like, let's just shoot him.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening as usual. We'll be back next week with part 3, and you can find us on all the platforms at Turn One Soul Ring, the podcast, and check us out on Patreon if you like what we're doing. We have a lot of fun on Discord with our patrons, so check that out if you want to do the I believe that's the $2 tier. But yeah, we'll be back next week with part 3, and then we'll be moving on to Strixhaven, which we're very excited to talk about.
Whoop whoop.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Woot woot.
I second that. Woot woot.
All right, guys, don't be a Krovax out there.
Yeah, be a Vadi.
Yeah.
Body.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's right. Yeah, or literally anybody else in the story.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for listening. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Turn One Soul Ring.